Good morning, everyone. Today we're gonna talk about mobile UX and UI from engineering perspective. Well, my name is Ivan. I'm a software engineer at Yelp. For those who don't know, Yelp is a San Francisco-based public company. Our goal is to connect people with great local businesses such as cafes, restaurants, beauty centers, doctors, and much more. Yelp has two engineering offices in Europe, in London and Hamburg. I work in Hamburg office. I'm also a mobile UX enthusiast. I love UX and UI. I love beautiful, consistent, meaningful apps. And of course, I love to make them. And the most important, I'm not a designer. So the whole talk will pretty subjective, and we'll walk through examples that illustrate how to come up with some best creative solutions and solve common problems in the mobile environment. The main goal is to achieve a collaboration between engineers and designers, and to help you create a truly great apps. Doing so is not easy. It requires dedication, focus, and patience. Sometimes you as a team come up with some wonderful idea. It's like a jet ski, it should be fast, it should be fun, and it should be innovative. Then you end up with something like this. Well, it's not what we were expecting. I guess we still can say that it's fast. It's certainly fun to watch, and there is no doubt that it's innovative. But still something's wrong. So how to avoid this kind of situation? I'd like to spend some time today reviewing some best practices that can helpfully inform and enrich your work as an engineer or a designer. This will save us frustration, hassle, and time. Well, for many of you, I'm sure you're already doing many of these things, but perhaps there's something that is easily overlooked, so we'll cover that. And I'd like to start about caring and the care you can give to your users. Consistency and familiarity that will make the user feel right at home from day one, and how platform can help you, and also company and product-wide style guides can help you stay organized and consistent. How often do you feel frustrated? This interface doesn't look easy to use. It's pretty messy. It's unclear. It's clumsy. I would be afraid to get shocked. And it's certainly difficult to figure out how to deal with it. It's almost like work, and we people tend to avoid it as much as possible. So as designers and engineers, we need some guidance. The guidance that will give you a direction, not set of rules, but more a good way of doing things that will walk you through a variety of options and provide you with the best solutions. Luckily, we have it. Human Interface Guidelines by Apple and Material Design Guidelines by Google give us a ton of valuable information, useful tips, and practices that are common for each platform specifically. This way, we will take care of the user. We'll remove their frustration, we'll make it easy, and they'll know what to do and what to expect from the app. But even though both platforms have a lot in common, they deliver a unique experience for each platform. As designers and engineers, we tend to copy, and it's kind of good to a certain point. We don't really like to waste our time, or we usually tend to cut some corners. But as soon as it violates some core platform principles or concepts, it works against us. So if you work with an app for both platforms, please don't copy, adapt. For example, there are three types of so-called selection controls on Android: checkboxes, radio buttons, and switches. They are very convenient and common for Android users, but on iOS they might seem a bit alienating and weird. So iOS provides you with switches and segmented controls. They are common for this platform. Try to avoid using unpredictable or uncommon controls in one of the platforms. To provide the best experience for the user, you need to follow guidelines, but they are not set in stone, so sometimes you might need to bend the rules or break them. There's also less obvious things to consider, like shadow elevation. Material design emphasizes components' elevation and shadow to provide clear distinction and focus user attention. So it creates a relationship between components. On the other hand, human interface guidelines tend to minimalize using of bezels and shadow, and with almost no elevation to keep the interface light and airy. A good example is action bar or navigation bar. Android action bar elevates itself above the content. It emphasizes it and distinguishes, it creates a hierarchy. iOS, though, uses it almost in the content level. It elevates it a bit when the content is scrolled. But using platform guidelines usually isn't enough. To achieve consistency throughout your app and to get a better result across all the platforms, you should consider using your company or product-wide guideline or style guide. It'll help you make a unique, recognizable, uniform experience. It will also help engineers and designers to do their job better, to make it more consistent and reliable. And in future, it will save you a lot of time and effort. So what is Style Guide? Basically, it's a set of common elements, color scheme, typography, icons, maybe something else. This is a set of components we use at Yelp. And as you can see, they're pretty different from platform to platform. So this is about consistency. Refer to guidelines. It's a great source of best practices and inspiration. They can help you a lot. Follow platform best practices. Be familiar. Play well with the platform. Make it easier for your user. And create and maintain Style Guide. Style Guide is a great source of information for your product. It'll help you a lot. Moving on to usability and convenience. A convenient app allows you to feel at home from day one. It's easy to use almost on subconscious level. It feels nice, it's neat, and users love this kind of apps. And usability is crucial here. Let's look at some core navigation principles. Navigation should be self-evident. There are three common types of navigation. Flat navigation, mostly used as a root of navigation tree. It allows you to easily move between sections of your app, switching the context and keeping your user aware of where they are. Thinking about navigation when designing an app is crucial to provide the best experience you can. iOS provides you with a top bar. Android, on the other hand, provides you with a bottom navigation and navigation drawer. Hierarchical navigation is used to dive deep into the tree and to open maybe item details such as business info, maybe to show a view to leave a feedback or change your settings. Content-driven navigation is very common in web, but it's not that common in mobile applications. It's mostly used for referring to related content or maybe a friends list. So be very careful when using it. Also, be careful when building a navigation tree to avoid inconvenient and poorly thought experience. Talk to your engineers. Come up with the best solution. They know how to do it best. And users should know where they are, and yeah, it just helps and creates the convenience you need. One more navigation pattern worth mentioning is modal dialogs. They're very common, but usually they're misused. The main purpose of modal dialog is to switch context. For example, you're viewing a list of emails, you can review them, but then you need to create one or maybe edit something. So this switch of context should be illustrated by modal dialogs. And try to avoid navigating out of the modal view. This kind of navigations might be unclear and unpredictable. Moving on to usability, we also should consider ergonomics. The way we hold and interact with our phones makes a lot of difference. So most of us hold a phone in one hand using a thumb to interact. Sometimes, though, we use a second hand to hold it more tightly, but mostly interact with the thumb. Some people, though, use their index. Such a weird people. Why would you actually do that? And of course, sometimes you need to hold it in both hands, usually for typing or gaming. So to make your app more convenient and easy to use, we should respect the thumb zone. It's not very easy to reach top bars or bottom edges, especially with the huge screen sizes. Try to bend your thumb that way. It's not that easy. Try to place most, if not all, your controls in the natural thumb area. But don't put too much in there. We have some physical limitations. Our fingers are pretty big for screen sizes. An average index size is around 57 points, and thumb can get up to 72 points wide. What actually guidelines say now are us about that? Well, material design suggests using minimum touchable areas of at least 48 points, whereas Apple says that minimal tappable area is 44 points. But is it enough? Well, not really. Like, you should also use a proper spacing and padding to avoid misclicks. And a good rule of thumb is don't try to put more than 5 elements in a row and test it. Because people might get angry. Imagine putting a 5 stars instead of 2 in the restaurant review. And keep in mind, small touch targets lead to big problems. But how do we keep all our controls in a natural thumb zone and provide enough space to avoid misclicks? It's not that easy, especially when Apple and Google suggest us to put back navigation button in top left corner. Well, gestures can help us. There are a set of common gestures, such as swipe back to return to the previous screen, or swipe down to dismiss a modal dialog, or just swiping through a list of news in our feed. All of these help us navigate. Others, like top, double tap, long tap, invoke actions. And we also can use transform gestures. For example, to pinch, to zoom in and out in the maps, or in your photo gallery, to rotate your photo, or crop it for Instagram. It's a great tool we can use to provide more convenience. But be aware that you should educate your users about them. Sometimes that they are not that obvious and require a bit more attention. Just to recap, use appropriate navigation. Make it clear and consistent. Respect a thumb zone. don't make your users struggle to reach a button, or don't force them to do a finger gymnastics. Use a big touch targets, decrease misclicks to a minimum, add gestures, make some tasks easy and seamless. Let's talk a bit about the fun stuff. Making your app fun and engaging is a crucial part in keeping retention rates high. Try to keep your users engaged. Try to make them use your app more. So why not to make it fun? One of the most common ways is animation. It makes the app more informative. It helps to understand that what is available and what will happen. It focuses your attention and on what's important and without creating unnecessary distraction. It also expresses personality and style. Look at this cute little fellow. Doesn't he look cute? Material Design Guidelines has a great topic on animation motion that covers almost everything you'll ever need. Definitely take a look before starting with animations. But sometimes animations might be too complex to implement. Well, there is a great tool called Lottie. It's an Airbnb open source project that allows you to convert most After Effects animations to native executable code. First of all, it's very easy to use. It's very performant, and it looks the same across the platforms. Of course, it has some limitations, but overall, it's just a brand new way to adding amazing animations to your apps. Forget about long, meaningless discussions with your engineers about how to make animations look as intended. This one just works. Another great use of animations is navigation transitions. There are a set of system-provided transitions, but sometimes you need something more in order to focus user attention on a specific content. Navigation transitions use motion to guide users between two screens in your app. Talk to the engineers and ask them how you can create a very meaningful and focused animation to make a transition. Come up with a great attention-grabbing custom transition. We actually love tackling complex tasks. We just never say that. Adding animations and transition is great, but keep in mind, all of them should be optional. Both platforms support turning animations off, so your app's functionality shouldn't rely on them. To sum up, animations make your apps engaging, and smooth transitions look professional, and use them as much as you can. But don't forget, all of this should be optional. How can we make our apps unique? Well, this is a pretty difficult question. First of all, what can engineers and designers do to make it unique, to make it stand out? First and foremost, we can talk. We can discuss. We can come up with some good ideas. We can share experience and help each other. Complex issues require full dedication from all the team. Experimentation is a fantastic approach, often highly underestimated. Bend the rules. Break them if needed. Try something new. Get feedback. Make a decision. Consider A/B testing. Get real input to make data-driven decisions. We at Yelp use an internal experimentation framework that allows us to test and verify multiple assumptions at once. It helps us a lot. Consider creating a design system. This makes your app recognizable and unique. Identity and branding make your app unique too. They preserve the integrity of the app, of the product. Branding creates some associations that connect the user to your product. It makes it recognizable. Illustrations deliver information too. They help to personalize your app, and the styling should correlate with the branding and identity, and well-designed illustrations are enjoyable and fun. Consider using funny characters because they work very well. They help to emphasize your app's style. Creating a unique color scheme is also crucial. It should be reinforced by branding and identity. Proper color palette, even if it's monochrome, can make your app truly unique. So this is about making your app unique. Don't be afraid to experiment. Bend rules. Maybe break them. Use identity and branding as a tool. It's crucial to make your app stand out. Think about adding meaningful illustrations. Create and use your own color palette. Let's talk a bit about reliability. Creating an app is not a highway. Well, in fact, it's a bumpy, curved road with a lot of problems on the way. And you never know where it will end up. Can these problems be avoided? And can we do something to avoid them, actually? Can we make our apps not just bug-free, but easy to use and friendly? Mobile platforms are very constraining. We have a limited screen size. There's a set of platform guidelines we should follow. There are a couple of physical limitations too, such as finger size, thumb zone, and all of this should be ergonomic and easy to use. And nowadays, users are pretty spoiled. They want the best experience that will stand out from the millions of other apps. Nevertheless, constraints can make you more creative. They force you to change your perspective. Look from a different angle. They help you to create a new approach. They force you to experiment. But we should be sure not to break anything else. To do that, check if all controls have required states. You can't imagine how many times I had to go to the designer and just ask him to add a disabled or highlighted state to the button, because when you're creating your wonderful design, you don't actually think about all possible options. It looks nice because it's static, but as soon as you add some interaction or make it fluid, all the problems come out. For sure, you don't usually think that it might happen, but yeah, you need to think about that. To save time and effort, please check to include, if necessary, control states. Another things to consider is a style guide that we've talked about. It can help you a lot because you already have all the states that can be reused and everything is ready. Also think about data. Almost all apps nowadays have some networking to load data, but it can take time, especially using cellular. It's a good practice to provide a meaningful loading state for each page. Just don't use loading bars with dimming. The interface should be responsive. Users should have an option to cancel or navigate elsewhere. He shouldn't get stuck on the screen while loading something. Sometimes data requests might fail as well, so provide a meaningful error messages and not some generic alert saying something's wrong, but explanatory description with a recovery option. Don't forget that some data might not exist yet, and think about empty screens and give the user an option to wait out. Input forms should be responsive too. I guess you always include placeholder, aren't you? And maybe it's worth adding a focus state, but I guess it's more platform specific. And don't forget about error messages. A lot of input forms have validation and they might have some incorrect or wrong data. The best way to show user what data is wrong is using error messages, like input-specific error messages, not some global message that will say, okay, some fields are empty, but what are they? The best way to ensure reliability is testing. Set up a testing session with engineers and designers. Use different devices. Use different screen sizes. Try to break it. Check if it's easy to use. Does it look right? Is the animation smooth and well-timed? Is it interactive and responsive? Test your app thoroughly and try to find as many inconsistencies as you can. But be gentle. We engineers hate critics, but always ready to help if you ask. Another useful approach is to have a checklist and use it while designing, delivering, and testing. You can't remember everything, and it's totally fine because you can always write it down and refer it later on. To sum up, think about all the possible options your UI can be in, test it thoroughly, use multiple devices, and try to break it. Create and use a checklist that will help you out later on. So we've covered how to make your app consistent across the platforms, how to make it convenient, engaging, unique, and reliable and resistant to different ways of interaction. Don't be afraid to ask. Engineers don't bite. Trust me, I'm an engineer. Thank you so much. You can go and check out all our open source project on GitHub page or follow us on Twitter at Yelp Engineering. Thank you.